I think. But as you know, because Vicki sent out a message about it, our board member Bonnie Bolton died very, very suddenly on June 30th, very unexpectedly in her condominium, which is just down the street on 44th. And today in the paper, we're going to do several things here, but today in the paper, and you can look it up, there is an obituary for her. Her name is Bonnie Charlene Mowry Bolton. She came from Omaha, Nebraska, but she went to school in St. Paul. Then she went to the University of Minnesota, majored in art. And then she was a freelance artist for a number of years. And then she became art director at Target. From there, she went on to be vice president of marketing for Montgomery Ward's. Those of you that even remember Montgomery Ward's, for Shopko and for Venture Store. She had quite an interesting career. And she has 2 sons and 5 grandchildren, all of whom will be mourning her loss, we know. So if you want to read the whole obituary, it is in the Star Tribune today. So Becky, you want to go next?
Yes, I wanted to, well, I personally have a long running relationship with Bonnie, probably not as long as some people here. She was one of the first people that I met in relation to the neighborhood council. She was at a going away party for the former coordinator before I took this position. And she was just the kind of person, I think most of you who have met her can attest to this, that you talk to her for a long time or a short time, and either way you feel really special in the conversation and you walk away from it saying, gosh, I hope that I get to spend more time with this amazing woman. I was so excited when she ran this fall to rejoin the board, because she had actually served on this board many years before my time. And I just was so excited to work with and learn from her. And I did in the time that she was here. I wish that we had had more. Something else that she did in this community was she did a lot of work with the Business Association. So at this point, I wanted to invite Lisa McMartin, who's the former chair of the Business Association, to say a few words. Lisa, are you out there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Thank you.
Can you not see me?
I can see you now.
Okay. See you and hear you.
Yeah. Former chair of the former Business Association. Janet at New Guild sent me a note late last week, and that said, have you heard about Bonnie? And that she had said nothing else. I just kind of knew, and I thought, oh God. You know, so many people I think reach the end of their life and have a long illness, and that's happened with both of my parents and with friends. And she just kind of went out the way she was. You know, she was very opinionated. She was very sure of herself, and she was really an optimist. You know, I always found that I would feel better after speaking with her about just about anything. So there were some words that I wrote down to describe Bonnie, and the first one I wrote down was stylish. She always looked way better than I did, and you know, age be damned, and her interesting glasses and her funky tunics, and she told me how long the tunics have to be to wear leggings and have it not be a dress. I mean, this is important stuff. She was incredibly active. That's the other word that I thought of with her. Her love for tennis and her incredible ability to come back to tennis after her surgeries was impressive, and yeah, it was pretty inspiring for those of us that aren't quite there, but might get there soon. With the Business Association, she was the best. You know, she would help with anything. And unlike people who say, yeah, I'll do it, she would show up and she would do it. And she would do things that, other people hated to do, like going around to all the businesses and soliciting their participation in events. I mean, not that it's a terrible thing to do, but it just takes time. And we were very lucky that Bonnie gave that time to us. Another word that I think of when I think of Bonnie is experienced. I'm a retailer. I've been I'm a career retailer, and she was too. And you don't find that in the village very much. People have followed their dreams and opened a shop, but she had that corporate experience, as do I. So we were kind of simpatico on that. And I found her viewpoint funny, and even, joking about the corporate craziness in the past was pretty fun. And then the last thing I'll say about her is Bonnie was fun. We would just be silly and laugh, and she always had a cool story. And if I was having trouble sort of pulling my thoughts together, we'd sometimes talk, and then she and I would both go, okay, we're clear on what we have to do now. And that was fun, but she was also very fun herself. And she was my friend. She wasn't a close friend. We didn't see each other. I didn't call her up and say, let's have coffee, but we were friends, and I'll miss her very much.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. And then I just wanted to share Barb Nei, who owns and runs Zumbro Cafe, also worked with Bonnie a lot. She was hoping to be here tonight. She couldn't be, so I'm reading something that she contributed. This is from Barb. The day that I learned about Bonnie's passing, I was stunned and saddened. I just couldn't believe that someone so full of life could disappear just like that. I met her at a Linden Hills Business Association meeting many years ago now, and we instantly clicked. She was a delightful force of nature, immensely talented, generous with her time, and a ton of fun. Together, we cleaned up neighborhood gardens, dreamed up and pitched numerous projects for the neighborhood, and laughed a lot. Working with her taught me so much about service, community, and not ever giving up. Long after the association and our Street View Committee dissolved, there was Bonnie, working at Woodstock at the LHiNC Festival and rushing through the neighborhood from one meeting to the next. She knew the true meaning of community and shared it with grace, hard work, and great humor with everyone around her. I will miss Bonnie Bolton, and so will Linden Hills. So that was from Barb. And then Linnea Palmisano, council member, Linnea Palmisano is here as well, and wanted to share a few words about Bonnie.
Where's she? Oh, we got a lot of people here tonight.
Hey, everybody. Sorry, I did end up coming to Linden Hills Park, so that's where I'm coming from. But I don't want to belabor the things that others have said, except it always deserves to be said again. The kind of positivity that Bonnie would share with me long ago on a cold winter's night when I was walking a dog, up or down, and I would run into her, and I don't know if she was walking her dog or any of her many neighbors' animals, but she would just have a nice friendly conversation, right? You'd always notice her signature red glasses, and exactly when you'd walk away from a conversation with Bonnie, you just felt this positivity, you felt valued, and you felt like, this is why I live here. So many of you, why you're here tonight at a community meeting, why you serve on the board, is because you work to share these things. And Bonnie she just held that. She was that person. She was that person for everybody that walked into the Bee Below. She was that person for everybody she met on the street. So I will miss her dearly. And thank you for having all of these nice little vignettes about her. And thank you for sharing tonight.
Thanks, Linnea. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to say a word or two before we get on with our business? Catherine?
I'll just be very brief. I just want to say ditto. And I will say, I think Lisa helped also, but in all of the opportunities that I had to share with Bonnie, and I just saw her like the day before her expiring, she was the only person I could get to sweep the street with me. We
Yeah.
would sweep the street on 43rd and Upton because we were so disgusted, if you will. And I think, Lisa, you at a couple of times also helped, but Bonnie and I were out there with the brooms, and she was on the board for Woofstock as well with myself, and I'll really miss that this year. So that's enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks. Okay. Thank you all very much. And thank you for those who are visiting who may not have known Bonnie, but I think you can have some sense of what her contributions have been and what kind of a woman she was and what a hole she leaves. Okay. Okay, Becky, we're going to start right in now with Hennepin County and the France 44.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So welcome everybody tonight. We really appreciate you being here. Carl Rime from Hennepin County. He's a transportation planner. He's here tonight to speak about the France Avenue project, which includes a proposal for bike lanes. So we have 45 minutes given for this presentation. What we're hoping to do is half that time give to Carl to kind of present the project, and then the other half of the time for questions and comments. We're going to ask that you keep your questions for after Carl's finished. And when we do enter the question period, because we do have many people here and we want to make sure everyone gets heard, if you could keep your question and or comment to about 2 minutes, we'd appreciate that. We'll kind of be tracking the time a little bit. We just want to make sure that in the time we have, we hear from as many people as we can and we get as many questions answered as we can. We are going to try to rely on actually ask questions tonight. So to use the hand raising function or on the screen will be helpful. You can type questions in the chat. We're going to kind of go to those last after we get through all the people who've raised their hand to ask a question. However, if we don't get to your question and it is in the chat, we will make sure that we have Carl or someone from Hennepin County answer those questions, and we will send it out to everyone who registered for tonight's meeting so that they can see the full list of questions. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Carl. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Becky. I just tried to share my screen. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
So I just gave it to you. I just made you a co-host. I apologize. Is it working
Yes.
now?
Looks like it.
Wonderful.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Carl Rime, and I'm a transportation planning analyst from Hennepin County. I am in the transportation planning division there at the county. So I wanted to come today and talk to you all about a project that's going to be happening on France Avenue and some potential changes, and to gather feedback on that. So I'll jump right into some project background here. So this is actually primarily a repaving project. Our Hennepin County operations team has identified France Avenue as in need of repaving. If you drive the corridor, you might agree. And so that is a scheduled repaving project. It will be done in 2 stages. In the summer of 2023, the corridor north of 44th Street from 44th to Excelsior would be repaved, and then south of 44th Street to 50th Street, that would be repaved in 2024 as part of the Metro Transit E-Line project that's going to be coming through that area. So we'll be done in 2 stages, but the planning of the entire corridor is going on now, and so that's why we're looking for feedback. With these repaving projects, what happens a lot of times is that staff look for opportunities to modify the roadway striping, opportunities for some changes. And so the corridor, or the area that we're looking at, would be from 49th Street on the south end up to Excelsior Boulevard in the north. And we're interested in getting public and agency feedback. So really quickly, just want to go over the existing conditions of the corridor. there is a mix of commercial and residential blocks and businesses there. So the residential blocks, there's generally parking allowed on one side of the street, and then bikeable shoulders are present in some areas on the opposite side. In other areas, it's just a very wide lane. On commercial blocks, parking is generally allowed on both sides of the street. I do want to acknowledge some past efforts that have been done by Hennepin County and also all three cities that are adjacent to France Avenue. So just to clarify, this corridor of France Avenue borders Minneapolis, Edina, and St. Louis Park. So all three of those cities and Hennepin County have established goals and visions for the community and for how they want development to happen. And so these documents have been kind of act as guide for staff when we are in these planning processes. In the three city plans, St. Louis Parks, the park, Edina's pedestrian and bicycle master plan, and then Minneapolis's transportation action plan. France Avenue is identified as a bicycle corridor, so identified for some sort of bicycle facility on that corridor. And a bicycle facility is also consistent with Hennepin County's goals of trying to improve opportunities for people biking, people walking, to improve access to alternative transportation and mobility transportation options for our residents, and to promote and also to reduce vehicle miles traveled within the county. We did do a parking study along France Avenue back in 2020. This is a very broad overview. We counted parked cars for several different days of the week and then different times of the day. On average, it came out to about commercial blocks are generally utilized. The parking is generally utilized more often. Residential blocks, not as much, but there is some utilization there for sure. We did also confirm that residential properties have driveway or alley access. We also noted that a lot of the larger businesses in the area do have their own off-street parking lots. I know that it doesn't include all businesses. There are still some that do rely on street parking. In terms of engagement and outreach, so that's where we are right now. We don't have any plans developed or anything, where we're simply going out into the community, into our guiding agencies and our committees, looking for feedback. So we've presented at the Hennepin County Active Transportation Committee, the Bicycle Advisory Committee. We are Linden Hills is the first neighborhood meeting that we've done, but we also have scheduled meetings with the Bolton neighborhood, Morningside, and also the Minnetonka Vista neighborhood of St. Louis Park. A lot of the residents who live adjacent to France Avenue or near France Avenue received a letter in early June talking about these proposed changes. I will admit, I think the wording in the letter was a little bit forward in that nothing has been decided yet, and we're still in a phase of gathering feedback and engaged in a phase of asking the community what their needs are and what they're looking for along France Avenue. There is a project website where you can read a little bit about the project, but also submit a comment form if you want to provide feedback. There is also a new interactive map which allows residents to place comments on specific parts of the corridor. That's a new feature. This meeting will actually be the first use of it. So I will demo that at the end of the presentation here in a couple minutes. So the striping considerations that that are up in the air, I guess, right now. We really have two options with this scope of a project. And so as a reminder, it's a repaving project. That means we're repaving the asphalt. We're not necessarily touching the sidewalks or the curbs. So what we have control over is generally the striping on the roads and what that roadway configuration looks like. So the options would be to essentially put the striping back as it is, where that preserves the on-street parking where currently available. And then the other option that we're looking for would be to incorporate a bike facility. And in this case, it would be bike lanes on either side of the roadway. And this option would advance those goals and those plans that were established by the cities and the county. It would also be a logical connector to a lot of different destinations. There is a proposed bike boulevard going east-west on 49th Street. And so that is why we're proposing that would be the southern termini of the bike lanes. Because we know that getting into the 50th and France area would be a little bit difficult, and the bike boulevard on 49th Street would be a natural endpoint for the bike lanes. And then on the north end, if you were to go up France Avenue and across Excelsior Boulevard, from there, there's opportunities to connect to the Cedar Lake Trail, opportunities to connect to the Green Line stations. And as already referenced, we have the future E-Line coming through this area. And so bike lanes provide a safe alternative or a safe option for people accessing the new bus rapid transit. Under this scenario, the commercial blocks are wider than the residential blocks. And so for the commercial blocks, we do think that if bike lanes were implemented, we could still preserve parking on one side of the road. So that's kind of the 44th and France area. We do think that we would be able to preserve parking on one side of the road there if bike lanes were the plan there. For the residential blocks, though, parking would be removed and replaced with bike lanes. The bike lane widths might have to be adjusted too in some pinch points. That would be the two stations that it would go through, the 47th Street future BRT station, and the 44th Street future BRT station. We may not have room for full bike lanes there. And in addition, the 38th Street pedestrian crossing as well. So again, we don't have we don't have any concepts to share tonight because we're not at that stage yet. We're currently just we just have these proposals, and we are looking for feedback from you guys, the people who live there, the people who drive and walk and bike and park too. So that's really the goal tonight, is to hear from you all and see what your needs are in the community. I will take a few minutes just to show how to do a comment on this interactive map. If you were to go to the project website here, we'll pull it up here, scroll down. First of all, you can sign up to get email updates about the France Avenue project by submitting your email address here. You can submit a comment in this comment form if you want us to receive your feedback that way. You can reach out to my name and phone number and email are on the website, so you can reach out to us that way. But the latest version, as referenced, is this existing road configuration, post comments on remix. So again, to clarify, these aren't plans for future concepts or anything like that. These are generally what's out there today. So here we have the France Avenue corridor. If you want to place a comment on a certain area, such as, I live here, and if I were to, if parking in front of my house were to be removed, I would have to walk from over here to access my house. Or it can be, I want to be able to bike to this, to Caribou Coffee or Brewers Bagels or something like that. So to post the comments, click up here and post comments. And then you can write your message. Name and contact information are optional, and then you can post it there if you would like. As of now, it's just county staff that are able to view your comments. We don't have it set up right now so that the community can see each other's comments. So that is that's the way that you all can submit feedback if you would like. Other than that, I'm ready to receive comments and questions here.
Great. Okay, so everyone, Carl, do you want to maybe unshare your screen for right now? And then if whoever has questions, if you can use your hand raising, and then I'll do my best to call in order what I see. So I see Ellen L has a question.
Yes, what is the minimum amount of bike traffic that would warrant a striping? And after some period of time, if that amount of traffic doesn't occur, would the stripes be removed?
That's a good question. What I can say right now is that there isn't necessarily a minimum amount of bike traffic that warrants bike lanes. What we look for, first of all, are those planning documents where they've been identified, and how those get into those planning documents are natural connections, essentially. We want to be able to create a network or the goal is to create a network of bike facilities that are interconnected and people can use them to get to the places where they want to be. The thought is also that increase by implementing bike lanes and bike facilities, that only increases the opportunity for people to use them. It only increases the safety of people biking on France Avenue as well.
Excellent. I see Carol Cafferty.
Yes, hi, Carol Cafferty and Paul's her husband. So thank you, Carl. It's a good presentation. And speaking for myself, I'm actually, I ride around in that area all the time. And in fact, my wife and I don't have a car at the present time. So we do rely quite a bit on mass transit and biking. That being said, I'm concerned about the use of France Avenue for biking because it already has a lot of heavy traffic for commercial and car. And they go kind of fast because there's not a traffic light between, say, Excelsior and 44th, or once you clear 44th, you've got a straight shot all the way to 49th. So people's cars build up a lot of speed. And also, so I'm concerned about that's a heavy use road, may not be appropriate for bicycles. And if you end up putting more of them on there, and paint is not really a barrier for cars. It would need to be something more solid, like infrastructure. By that I mean like concrete or something. And I'm concerned about bus rapid transit. If you're going to put that on the road, then more frequent bus traffic adding to the commercial traffic, and also the impact of taking away parking from the commercial districts. So to me, I think France is not a great choice, though I understand the geography can lend toward that being a choice because of the golf course on one side and then parks on the other side. Myself, I use Wooddale most of the time when I'm trying to go south to, say, Southdale, or to even further, because Wooddale gets me over Minnehaha Creek, it gets me underneath Crosstown, it hooks up with Valley View Road, and works better than I think than France would. And just the last thing I'll say is I appreciate the city's wanting to increase bike usage and facilities. And again, as a guy who doesn't have a car and rides his bike all the time, I think that's great. But at the same time, I feel like some roads may not work well because we have to live in a world where there are cars. Okay, so like for example, Portland and Park, when they took away lanes and added bike lanes to that, to me, that had a big impact on cars, because that was an alternative to 35, and 35 is either under construction or something. And so I think that made it a better choice. There could have been a better choice there, as an example. So in conclusion, I think I see where you're going with France, but we might be asking too much out of just that one stretch of road. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments there. With respect to time, I'll kind of breeze through answers a little bit. Sorry if they're not full answers. But for one, I would say that Hennepin County, we only have control over the county roads, and France Avenue is one of them. And so that wouldn't include, of course, the local roads in the area. And so, well, we certainly hear, and so that's why we're the ones proposing it on France Avenue as well here. We do certainly hear you about the concern of unsafe conditions on France Avenue. We have received quite a bit of feedback concerning the speeds on France, and how there's excessive speeding, there's heavy commercial vehicles, trucks. One comment I'll say in response is that this isn't a completely ideal solution either for us. Ideally, there would be some separation between bikes and vehicles, but this is the scope of what a paving project is. We don't have the luxury of being able to add in more concrete, more pavement, or more concrete and more curbs anywhere. And so the scope of what we have under this project is paint on the road, which is not the best solution, but we see it as an incremental step towards a better connected system. And ideally too, bike lanes on roads. I know the lanes on France are pretty wide because there is usually a bit of buffer room on one side. By narrowing the roadway a little bit, by adding bike lanes and people out there biking, it does have somewhat of a mental effect on drivers that the lane isn't as wide as a freeway anymore, so now they have to slow down. They're a little bit more aware of slowing down. But that being said, we do understand the safety concerns out there, and that's why we want to hear from everyone and hear from bikers like you on what your thoughts are as well.
Thank you, Carl. All right, we're going to go next to Joan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'll be as quick as I can. I have two questions quickly. One is, when my husband and I moved here about 2 years ago, we were told, and we live between 42nd and 44th on France. We were told that when the street was widened the last time, that the sidewalks were going to be maintained by the city because of the agreement of the widening. It was somehow in the mix there, and I think that's mostly happened. So my first question is, will that continue, or how does that change? And then my second question is, we live in a multi-generational home with a nearly 80-year-old woman my mom, who has cancer and is doing well, but she receives Meals on Wheels, and she has several brothers and sisters who are in their 80s, and they visit her from time to time, and they have to park near us, and we can't accommodate their cars. And my question is, what accommodations will be made for handicapped residents in this new plan? And will there be any accommodations for individuals who are not able to walk long distances if they're parking to visit family members, or if they are receiving services to help them with their terminal illnesses or whatever kinds of supportive resources that they might need? Thank you.
Thanks, John, for your question. Regarding the first one, yes, I believe that sidewalks would still be maintained by the cities. That still is in the works. The question about elderly folks living along this corridor, or people with disabilities, that is a very relevant concern, a very real concern. So one of the things that we did do before proceeding with, going down this road is acknowledging or confirming that there is driveway or alley access to all the homes. I know that isn't the perfect solution here, because sometimes driveways are full with other cars. As of now, I don't know of any other options for people who maybe can't walk a long ways. And that is something that I could look into and get back to this community about. But as of now, I don't know of anything that's being proposed.
Is there involvement as far as like the what is proposed now? Has there been any studies that have been done post-pandemic, A, with parking, and then B, what is the ADA like? Is there, as far as considering like people who do have disabilities, because bike lanes eliminating parking, while there are so many benefits, and clearly I think all of us can see how important to prioritize that, but it's also a very ableist mode of transportation. And so if there aren't any considerations for individuals who are handicapped or differently abled, then, what are the other, what are the other organizations that could advocate for these individuals? Because we need to have a voice here, and we can't just say, well, we have a small driveway. That's not, I don't think that's an adequate response.
That's enough, Becky? Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll go to Karen.
There we go. Thank you. Hi, my name is Karen. I live on 3700 block of France, and I'm very concerned about the issue that was just raised. Carl, you mentioned that you've confirmed that everybody has either a driveway or some kind of alley access. And, whether you're 40 or 60 or 79, we all have services that come to our home. And when I have Ben Franklin Plumbing come, I have no driveway in front of my home. And the tiny little apron pad that's provided in the alley when this lot was platted, it doesn't accommodate much more than a little VW golf parked sideways, much less the big truck from the service people. And whether or not I have a handyman with a pickup truck coming or the lawn service company coming, we have no access for people to service us. And a tiny little apron pad does not equate to having on-street parking. And I want to reference the Older Americans Act, because I am an older American. I want to stay in place and age in my home. And we should be able to have community services come to us, whether it's just to maintain our home so that it stays safe to live in, or whether it's to maintain our health and well-being and have caregivers come to us. And so I don't think that we've thought enough about how do we accommodate the new way of mobility on bike trails, and yet still allow people to age in place and stay in their homes. And I really want you to really think twice about how you are really making us move from our home. It's very difficult to continue to live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Carl?
you, Karen. Oh, I think Shannon was next. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, this is Mike. Shannon's the one that logged in here.
Ah.
Yep, my wife. I'm with you,
Oh,
Paul.
okay.
Logged in for our
You're not
wife.
Shannon.
No, I was just looking at the map. You know, you go to Google Maps and you throw in the filter to show bike trails. And we are in somewhat of a dead zone in Minneapolis, of not having either dedicated or roads that are painted specifically for biking. You know, throughout the rest of the city, there are arteries that run over to get around, but we're in, again, kind of a dead zone here. It feels like this particular idea or concept came up a little bit as we can maybe look at it. You know, we're repainting, or we are repaving the roads anyway. We might as well look at, would some paint help? It's kind of, it seems like, Carl, how it's kind of been phrased. So my question is really just, we're in a little bit of a dead zone. It feels like we need to add biking somehow, some way to this area of Minneapolis. This project seems like the project that's up next, so it's worth asking the question here. But are there other projects in the pipeline that it's not just going to be this project, and if the community says it doesn't work for us, then we're not going to get bike lanes in Linden Hills? You know, are there things that are coming up that we maybe, you know, Xerxes or just other roads that could be used? You know, I'm just curious to know kind of what the future looks like.
Thank you,
Sure.
Carl.
I don't have a great answer for you as far as the counting goes. So again, we have control over the county roads, and France Avenue is one of them, and then Excelsior is another one. But there isn't another Excelsior south of Excelsior south of you guys is also one. But I would say that as far as I know, there isn't another project coming from the county that would add bike lanes north and south through Linden Hills or through this part of the metro area. One thing I would say, though, is that this is a repaving project. Repaving projects happen about once every 10 years. To get a fully built out bike facility where we have separated bikes and separated vehicles, which would be the ideal solution, that would need a reconstruction of the entire road. And that's probably well beyond, that's probably 20 years out, I would say. So this is the next option. That being said, the cities of Edina, St. Louis Park, and Minneapolis, they can always propose alternative options on other roads.
Great, thank you, Carl. Nicolina is next.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who spoke before me. A lot of really good points have been raised. My household presents kind of a very different and sometimes in conflict two-prong concern. I myself am not a driver. I don't own a car. I don't have a license. I've lived in cities with lots of public transit that aren't Minneapolis for the bulk of my adult life. So I am very spoiled by having bike corridors connected to public transit corridors. I know what that looks and feels like from years of living in larger metropolitan areas. And it's exciting to think that Minneapolis is growing towards that. It's also deeply concerning to suggest that I, a biker, should be biking on a county highway without protected bike lanes inside concrete barriers. Any of us who have biked on 36th Street know perfectly well that at the first cocktail, drivers are driving inside those lanes because they're not protected lanes. All that's stopping the driver is perception and the cones, and they don't. I've been walking my dog in that lane on 36 next to the cemetery and had a car drive next to me because it wasn't paying attention and didn't understand what it should be doing. So thinking about biking on France with only paint to care for me is very terrifying. And the other side of that is that I have someone in my household who's disabled. And if we lived on France and this proposal came up, it would be very, very upsetting. He is an older person. He's limited by both age and physical impairment. So it's important to me that I get priority as a biker and he gets priority as someone who's disabled. So I would love to try to hold both of those needs together as we think about this.
Great, thank you, Nicolina.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for for your comments. And I'll just reiterate too, like, the ideal solution would be a separated use bike facility like you're referencing.
No, it's antifreeze.
This is what we're
It got
able to
warm.
do at this time.
Antifreeze. It's cooling.
Oh, cool.
How hot did it get?
Something else.
Yeah. Well, we're going to move on. I'm going to try to have that person mute, but in the meantime, Ellen is next. Ellen?
Yeah, sorry, it took me a moment to
That's
unmute.
okay. Yeah.
My perception, correct me if I'm mistaken, is that the county's plan is more being defended than seeking input for improvement or suggestions. Like, it doesn't matter if stripes aren't safe, following up on your comment, Nicolene. Actually, my friend's sister was killed on through the protection of a stripe on a county highway. It doesn't matter if it's unsafe. It doesn't matter if it hurts homeowners. To my question, it doesn't, well, if it isn't used, they won't, the stripes stay because the idea is to have a bike lane. And it has to be France Avenue instead of Wooddale because the county wants it. And so it has to be a county road. And you can't even, there's no considering if a city road could be used instead. So that's why I say my perception is that this is an act of defense, not a welcoming of comments and improvements. I would very much like to be mistaken.
Okay. Becky, go ahead. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Right,
Thanks for your feedback, Ellen. It is noted, and the most important thing right now is to make your voices heard, because no decisions have been made. We don't have any. We're not engineering this right now. This is an idea and a proposal that staff has, but we don't do this without the support of the community.
Well, I'm very glad to know that. Thank you, Carl.
Right. Thank you very much. I want to make everyone aware that we have about 10 minutes left. So just trying to keep comments and questions to 2 minutes will be super helpful because I want to make sure everybody gets heard. And so with that being said, Laurel, you're next.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I live on France and near 42nd Avenue. And my concern, again, as others have voiced concerns about safety, is the cross street congestion. My house was hit last year by a car that went off the road, trying to avoid an accident. And people are pulling out impatiently from these intersections onto and off of France Avenue. I'm concerned adding bikes to that congestion is scary to me, honestly. And if we had less parking on France Avenue and moving those cars to the side streets, which would be most convenient, they become even more congested and it makes even more of a kind of a frenzy bubble there. And it added to the speeds and the number of cars that are on France Avenue. I just am concerned about adding bike traffic, and putting the lanes there, I think gives the impression that it's a place bikers should be. And I don't know that people who are not familiar with France Avenue realize what they're getting into when they're biking here. I really don't think we'll see a lot of use out of a bike lane on France Avenue because of the safety issues that are here. So I just wanted to make those comments. I don't know that there's anything that can be done to make them more safe in the current plans of the county. Just concerned about the safety. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurel. We have heard other concerns about the cross traffic at 42nd and also at 39th too. So thanks for your comment. We will take that into consideration.
Just one more thing, Carl, I would say all intersections on France Avenue. It's not any particular one because the traffic is busy all along France and people are constantly trying to cross or turn, as I do when I come out of the alley and I want to go on France Avenue or come off to get into the alley. So it's something I'm very familiar with and I see it all up and down France Avenue. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Laurel. We're going to go to Tom Neiman now. Tom?
What happened to Barbara?
So Tom's been waiting. He's just not able to use the hand raising function. I've been messaging with him. Sorry. I'll go to Barbara next. Sorry, I'm trying to keep everybody in order.
So Tom,
are you there?
Can you turn off your mute? Is there or not? Okay, I don't know what's happening there.
Okay.
You said Tom Newman?
No, Tom Neiman?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Someone, the screen just told me to unmute mine and I'm Tom Styler and I
Oh.
have
I'm
my,
sorry, I did, I'm sorry.
okay. I'll mute
Sorry,
again.
we'll move over to Barbara. Barbara, go ahead.
I have probably a revolutionary comment, but this is Minneapolis and there are seasons. And I've monitored bike traffic and I ride my bike now in the summer myself. I would not ride it in the winter. And I noticed that even on like the Cedar Lake Trail, there were very few bikes, very protected trail, -5 degrees Fahrenheit, no bikers. I mean, maybe 1 in 5 minutes or something. So I wonder if seasonal signs about biking, that this is a bike lane, the 3 months that are 3 or 4 months that are possibly decent, and the other, 9 months or so, it's open for cars, because that's what it will be anyway. People don't expect bikers.
Robert, thanks for your observation. I don't know for sure if it can switch back and forth. I don't know of an instance where that occurs. But if I can find something or if I have an answer for you, I'll definitely let you know or follow up with the group.
Great, thank you both. Gary is next.
Thank you. Hi, Carl. I live on France Avenue as well, around the 3600 block. And as you're probably aware, the 3500 through 3600 block has no alley. So the only access to the homes are through the driveways that are there. We happen to share our driveway with the house next to us. So that's going to be problematic for both of our homes, my neighbors and ours, given that that would basically block any access to our adjacent homes in our situation. I mean, I'm all for bike lanes. I'm a biker myself. I bike all over. I go down the Cedar Trail and and connect there to across the city. So I'm certainly not opposed to bike lanes in general. But the other concern I have, a safety concern, is if you think about these trucks, being in driveways, through the 3500 block through 3600 block, and again, there's no street between. I'm at 3600. There's no cross street there. So for that 2 block area, you have trucks potentially trying to back out onto a county road with all the hedges and trees and such. It's difficult to see the way it is. That's going to create a dangerous situation for bikers and vehicles, going backing out as well as on the road. We have problems the way it is today, let alone if you remove all the parking. And when I'm talking about vehicles, I mean, when you have works done on your homes, you have, whatever it might be, plumbing, sewer repairs, home restoration, moving, whatever it is, we package deliveries. We really won't have any place for those vehicles to be other than potentially a block and a half away, turning on a side street and carrying everything to us. So that's going to make it very difficult for access for those residents in that 2 block range. Have you thought about that? And what are your comments around those types of issues?
So Gary, to be respectful of the time here, it sounds like you're a St. Louis Park resident, and I do want to acknowledge that we are setting up a neighborhood meeting with the St. Louis Park residents later in July. It's looking like this is going to be July 28th. We haven't gotten official communication out for that, but we will have an opportunity to speak probably in person about issues for St. Louis Park residents.
Great. Okay, we're gonna go to Tom Neiman now. I think Tom, he wasn't able to unmute before. Tom, can you hear me? Tom? I see that you're unmuted. Okay. We'll go to Gary then. Oh, do we just talk to Gary? I'm sorry, I fell behind. I think we're on Tom Seiler now. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Yeah, I just want to say every time I'm driving on France coming down the hill from 44th to turn left into my driveway, and I have to yield to the oncoming traffic, especially during rush hour, but most any hour. You gaze in the rearview mirror as you're waiting your turn to turn left, and you just see these people flying towards you in your rearview mirror, and you are stopped and they're not slowing down. So what they usually do is pass on the right. As I see them passing on the right without signaling, I also am looking at the few parked cars on the right, wondering if they're going to smash into those things because they're not looking at those either. I just don't think people pay any attention to lanes. They just do what they want when they're driving. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Tom. All right, we're at 39th in France. Tiger.
Hi, yeah. I was actually going to say something very similar to that. I'm at 39th in France, clearly. And you were talking, Carl, about how cars tend to drive slower when there are bike lanes or around bikers because the way it's striped. And I completely disagree. Coming home tonight, I had cars pass me on the right as well. And I sent you a bunch of questions, so I will not repeat them here. I'm hoping that you received them and that I would receive answers back. But the question I'm having right now is what striping can be done, whether there's parking or whether there's bike lanes that would actually slow down the traffic.
Yeah, thanks. I did receive your questions. I'll follow up with you. As of now, there is nothing proposed right now to slow down traffic.
Okay.
All right. I think we've gotten to all of the questions that were here. There are a lot of comments. Oh, here, Tom Neiman was not able, we weren't able to hear him. So here are his questions. Tom says, I've led bike trips and tours through Southwest Community Ed and the Hennepin County Lung Association for the last 40 plus years. Questions. Number one, how will you connect the Greenway and Green Line? Oh, how will you connect? The Greenway and Green Line do not connect directly to France. You could route bikes through Minnetonka Oaks, but you still have inadequate room for bikes on France.
So that there is no current connection, I believe. When we talk to city staff of Minneapolis and St. Louis Park, mainly a St. Louis Park issue, I believe. Staff there knows that there's if there were to be bike lanes extending to France or extending to South Street Boulevard, city staff knows that that's a natural next step is to extend some kind of boulevard to the Cedar Lake Trail.
You can't hear him.
So that'll be a proposed future plan.
Great.
For some reason, and maybe it's just my computer, but Carl, your sound is getting all muddled up. I mean, you know, not what you're saying is muddled. The sound quality is muddled. Okay. Becky?
Yes, I think what we'll do, I mean, it's 8:03. And so at this point, I want to let you know that we'll be sharing this video with the community. And then we'll also be sharing this video with the county so that they have this as part of the record. If you do have any more questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. We will send those to Carl. And Carl, is it okay if you can then answer those? And I will send those back to everyone who's on this call tonight. You can receive the chat question answers. Okay.
Can you take a quick one?
We are trying to move on. How quick is it?
Well, it's very quick. It's just, Carl, I read your 2040 bicycle transportation plan, and I didn't see France Avenue identified as a preferred road, county road for a bicycle lanes. And I didn't see it on the preferred gap to connect existing lanes. So I guess I'm surprised that you said tonight that it really was a preferred lane, county road to be putting lanes on.
You are correct, Karen. It wasn't identified in Hennepin County's bicycle plan. That's why we're referencing the cities of Minneapolis, St. Louis Park, and Edina have in their plans. Again, this is an opportunity that we're exploring.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for being here. And thank you, Becky, for your offer to get all the questions in the chat out to everybody who has participated and to Carl. So thank you very much. We will continue to pay attention, Carl, and we'll sign up for the updates that are on your website. Okay. So thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate it very much. Becky?
And you're welcome to stay on if you'd like. The next thing on our docket is the finance report, which is always very exciting. So with that, we're going to head over to Bjorn. Hold on, where are you, Bjorn? So I can share.
Sorry, I lost. It's now
Light.
bedtime, and so the lights were shut off on me. So I really have to apologize. I
For
can't
you or
change it
your
at this
3-year-old.
moment.
That's really
All right, Becky, I'm allowed to share now. Yeah, maybe.
Yes, you are. Yes. Thank you.
All right, can you all see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we are, you can't see that, I don't think, but that's good. So for July, we had a little bit of activity, not a whole lot. We've basically paid our professional services and kind of our ongoing expenses for the quarter. And then let's see, we also had the OWL purchase that we approved last meeting, and a number of I think almost all the grants came through that we approved last meeting. I think there's still one outstanding. So our total checking account balance is at $42,469.12. And then the savings with approximately the same for a total of $83,233.15. Let's see, I think we still have the park funds, and I know that Gina and the committee have been working through that direction. So we'll see how that goes. We'll probably be hanging on to that for a while as an outlier. And that's essentially the gist of it. There is one fun one, which is Euroscapes, which was for some trees, and that will be funded from the Hendry Fund. So I'm expecting that we'll see some reimbursement from that expenditure. So all in all, a typical end of the quarter month.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Bjorn. Thank you.